Thank you guys for joining us today. These webinars are always fun when you don't do them all the time. And I obviously don't because you guys are sitting here and we're acting like we haven't let you in yet. So a little bit of fun on a Wednesday. But thank you guys all for joining us today. We're really, really excited about our Billables AI integration that we launched 2 weeks back now. I'm lucky today to have Nancy with me, one of the co-founders of Billables AI. One of the interesting things about Billables is how it came to be. So Nancy's co-founder, Arvind, his wife is actually an attorney and was looking for a solution. And so Nancy and Arvind were able to build a solution, not only that satisfied she and her firm, but also that won them Legal Tech Product of the Year. Am I saying that right, Nancy?
Yeah, Legal Tech Company of the Year at Legal Week.
And there were some big names in there like Harvey. So Nancy, congratulations on that. And we are
Thank
so excited to get to partner with you and bring the value to our customers as well. So a few things to let you guys know. The approach we took when we were evaluating different integrations is we actually looked at almost every single product in the world. And I'm not exaggerating. I was on calls with people all over the world. And we picked Billables as our preferred vendor that we're going to integrate with for a few different reasons. One, it's just an exceptional product, but also because of their privacy first way of capturing time. A lot of the other integrations that you'll look at, or a lot of the other products, excuse me, they're doing a lot of monitoring and screenshots in the background on everything you're doing. Whereas Billables is leaning more into the APIs with the products you're using and really taking a privacy first approach, which I'm sure Nancy will get into. The other thing is from a Centerbase experience, we thought this was the best fit for our customers. What it's also, we're starting with an integration, but the direction we're going with it is a full embed within Centerbase. So you're not going between systems, but the reason we've rolled it out as an integration first is because we want to understand how our customers are using it to make sure we're not just developing in a vacuum and we're actually hearing you guys on how you want to see the integration points or the embed points within the system. The last thing I'll say is, from our standpoint, this is more important than just the automated time capture. Nancy's going to highlight how much time they're able to capture for most firms. But on top of that, as we're getting into thinking about pricing and just utilization, as we begin to bring this data together, as we go towards an embed strategy, having this data is going to be extremely important at your fingertips to understand how to best price different services and how to really move in to 2026 and 2027 with some of the changes that AI is bringing to the industry. The last thing I'll say is we're going to drop a survey into the chat. And if, there you go, we just dropped it in. If you're interested in a follow-up one-on-one demo, please fill out that survey. We'll have a team member get in touch with you right away. I can tell you we have a ton of people that are interested in this. And so just getting everybody onboarded will be fun, but it obviously first come, first serve. So if you're interested, please go ahead and sign up and we'll get that taken care of. Nancy, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rob. What a great intro. And I appreciate the partnership and yeah, really are excited to kick off this partnership with Centerbase and to work with hopefully a lot of you all in helping to automate your timekeeping process.
Hey, Nancy, one thing real quick. They're saying they don't see the survey. Here's the survey. Can somebody acknowledge it?
Yeah, I just updated it. It's out there now.
Okay. Okay. We're just newbies today. We're just
Yeah, no
newbies. Go ahead,
worries.
Nancy.
All good. Yeah, survey in the chat. Okay, great. So today, wanted to cover a few things. One, I want to spend some time talking about the problem that we're here to solve. I think the story Rob shared of my co-founder Arvin and his wife, who said to us early on that billing and timekeeping is the bane of her existence. I think there's more evidence of that being like a widespread issue. And so we'll share a little bit about what we've heard after talking to hundreds of firms and lawyers and other timekeepers. Then we'll talk about the opportunity. What does it look like to use AI for this particular use case? And how can AI actually help in many different facets of timekeeping and billing? We'll talk through the actual demo. So I know you guys are eager to kind of see the product in action. Don't worry, we will show that. We'll talk through some of the results and the impact, and then kind of how this translates into the future of billing. And we know this is a hot topic right now, so we'll kind of share some thoughts that we have on our end about how this really is a springboard for kind of the future modern law firm. So we'll start with the problem, which is why time slips through the cracks. So I think a lot of you are probably familiar with some of these stats. I think a lot of times they've been used as a scare tactic, right, to kind of get people to get their time in. But what the ABA has found is the longer that you wait to get your time in and billed, the leakier, your revenue is. And so they looked at, what it looks like when people wait till the end of the day or the next day or end of week, that's a typo, to get your time in. And as you can see, the longer you wait, the more risk there is that you're forgetting time and that you're leaving revenue on the table. And so one question we asked ourselves really early on is, why is time tracking so darn leaky? And I think the real answer here at a high level, kind of philosophical level, is because timekeepers are human and humans are not stopwatches. I mean, I think that's the simplest way to
I
describe
like
it,
that.
right? We are all human. We have a lot of great skills, and being a manual stopwatch just doesn't happen to be one of them. And even in the best case scenario where you've trained and you've conditioned the habits and you become a solid contemporaneous biller, even those strong billers will end up missing time. The second, an unexpected call comes through, or you step away from the office, or someone kind of interrupts you. It's just human nature. And there's this concept of flow state that was popularized in the last couple of decades, also kind of known as the zone. And it's this mental state of complete absorption and intense focus on an activity that was coined by this Hungarian American psychologist. But we see this a lot when we talk about, productivity and excelling in the workplace. Getting into that zone, into that flow state is so critical for a lot of that deep, meaningful work, which, surprise, surprise, a lot of lawyers, this is the majority of the work, right? Like it is really deep. You have to immerse yourself in it. You're dealing with really complex issues in this knowledge industry where achieving and maintaining that flow state is super important just due to the nature of the work. And so if you think about being deep in your work and then having to pause what you're doing to kind of create a time entry, start and stop a timer, write down a narrative, and then pivot right back to what you were doing, obviously that's a really intrusive habit and behavior. It's not easy. And that is why it's really important that we start to think about tools that can help minimize this disruption because it's costly, right? It's not just the few minutes that it takes you to create the time entry. It's that disruption to your actual work and the impact of that flow state that we're really talking about. And this is how we see modern firms and lawyers and billers really thriving. So let's talk about some real world pain points. We talked to hundreds of lawyers, paralegals, partners to kind of understand the real pain points that are plaguing law firms. So I'll issue a bit of a trigger warning here. The following are some quotes that may bring back some painful memories of billable timekeeping, so just proceed with caution. But what I'm going to share are some personas that we've seen in all of the folks that we've talked to. And as I'm kind of going through this, I'd love for you to just think, do you see yourself in these profiles and these personas? Does this resonate with you? Does this remind you of someone on your team, perhaps? Just keep that in mind. So the first persona that we have identified is the constant context switcher. And feel free to light up the comments too. We want to hear from you. If this is sounding familiar, like let us know.
It
We
just got called adorable, Nancy. Adorable.
amazing. Um, Yeah, so, one common one, I think this is probably the most common persona we've seen is this constant context switcher. So we hear this a lot for like senior partners. Oftentimes, the more senior you are, the more responsibility you have, the more clients you're dealing with, the more context switching. And so when you're kind of going back and forth between multiple matters, it's super easy to just forget to bill or let something kind of fall through the cracks. Another persona is the forgetful filer. So this is common with folks who just never nailed that contemporaneous billing game. They're trying to recreate their time at the end of the week or end of the month. And at that point, it's just this kind of auditing exercise, and they're going through their old, emails, and it's definitely not accurate and definitely leaky. Um, Oh, I'm going backwards. The next persona is the narrative novice. So we hear this a lot for junior folks, but also new folks joining a team or even seasoned pros that are kind of taking on new clients for the first time, where it really takes a lot of back and forth and kind of trial by um, error to kind of figure out the best quality time entries and the bills that, a client will accept and find compliant to their rules. And so that process of kind of getting from that beginning stage to, that pro when it comes to billing for that client, it's costly. It takes a lot of time. The productive but penniless, this is one we hear a lot from administrators who see this issue where either they're doing this or they're hearing it and seeing it from people on their team where they're working a ton of hours, up to 12 hours a day. But then when they look at their billables, it does not reflect that. So they see the people burning the midnight oil in the office, and yet it's not translating to their timesheets. And it's just hard to kind of explain where that's all going. And then the last one that we've seen is the on-the-go overlooker. This is more and more common as folks are working remotely, traveling, where you're not necessarily tethered to your desk all the time when you're doing client work or any firm-related work, right? You may be taking a call in the car or emailing while you're en route somewhere and using different devices. And oftentimes when you are kind of moving in those different environments, it's really easy to forget how to forget to bill that time because you're just on the go. So just think of, these and share in the chat, which of these timekeeping personas do you relate to? Which ones do you see within your firm? We'd love to kind of hear.
Nancy, you're being asked if you can maximize your screen because words are being cut off.
Yes. Is that better?
Uh,
Okay.
there you go.
I think I fixed it.
Yeah, I'm seeing the full
Okay. That's a good segue, actually, because after going through those trigger-inducing personas, I want to kind of encourage us all to take a deep breath because really it's not a human flaw like we talked about. It's not you, it's manual time tracking. I think that is the root of the issue. And this is what we've identified and why we see such a huge opportunity in using AI for timekeeping. It is this use case that you probably never knew you needed until you've really thought deep about like what the problems are that are underlying. And I think what we've seen is so much of the conversation around AI has been misguided. It's around kind of AI being used to revolutionize the core work, right? Document drafting, research summarization, et cetera, which actually could have the effect of reducing your billable time. We'll get into that another time. But timekeeping has been this kind of like unsexy use case that is overlooked until now. So we're really excited to kind of be on the front lines of this. Really, it feels like a revolution because of how transformative it is for people's workflows. So what does this
Hey,
look like?
Nancy, sorry
Yeah,
to
please.
jump in for a second. I think one of the interesting things I hear from firms too is if you're trying to get a larger group to adopt AI within your firm, time tracking is a very safe way to do that because it's not touching the legal work.
Exactly.
But if you guys are thinking about how to get it AI within your firm, more adoption, more centralized and governed, this is something you should consider as well.
Yeah, that's a really great point. I think this is something we've heard from a lot of our customers of, there's this appetite to try AI tools, but a lot of fear too around, hallucinated cases and things like that. And obviously what we're doing here is very low risk, right? Um, it's not really touching like the actual core work itself. It is like helping to streamline administrative tasks. And the way that we're using AI, you'll see, is in very secure and kind of measured ways. So if you think about how AI could automate all of the most hated parts of billing, there's kind of a few key components that we really lean into our technology to help automate. So one, it's capturing time as you work. So imagine a digital assistant that's kind of by your side as you work, essentially running your timer for you quietly in the background as you're switching from task to task. You're going through all of these different touch points with your clients, you're having internal meetings, and instead of you having to manually capture that, the AI tool is in the background capturing. And one thing to be very clear on, we are not using AI to generate the time durations. That's actually coming directly from our integration. So those are true, timestamps that we know that's the time actually worked. The second way that we use AI to really maximize your billing workflows is to reduce a lot of the most common, mundane, repetitive tasks. So think of all the cumulative minutes and hours spent wordsmithing narratives, and kind of really getting the language right, using review and analyze instead of research in certain environments. And imagine all of that reduced down to just a few seconds because we're kind of auto generating that, or you have ability to use AI to kind of refine your narratives and review it easily. And then the other area is around compliance. So imagine being able to upload your outside counsel guidelines and letting AI extract the rules and automatically applying them to your time entries. And this is something we do. You don't have to imagine this exists today, where you can upload your outside counsel guidelines and we'll basically turn those into rules that are applied right when those entries are generated. So those are kind of the main ways in which we're using AI across our tool to really help automate the process. And with that, I want to dive into the actual demo so you can see it in action. So what I'm showing you here is a dashboard, which is kind of the main interface of the platform. So like I was describing, imagine you are going throughout your day. You've attended a internal prep meeting, which led into a client meeting with, your client Worldwide Inc. You're responding to emails, you're doing some research. While you're doing it in all of these different environments, you don't even have to come to the Billable site. You don't have to turn on a timer or do anything. Your dashboard on the Billables platform is populating as you're doing all of these activities. So maybe it's like midday, and then that's when you realize, hey, I want to see, what my time entries are looking like for the day. You would pop in here and you would see all of this already generated. Everything that you're seeing here is automatically created by us while you're working. So you would have essentially a first draft of all your time entries ready for you to approve. So just to show what this looks like and what's kind of happening behind the scenes, I can double click into a couple examples here. So first, we'll look at this email time entry. So you can see here when I hover over this icon, it actually shows me that this time entry is coming from some emails that were sent between this user and her client. It shows me some of the metadata for that email, and then it links me back to my Outlook where I can see the original email itself and kind of refresh my memory because I'm probably sending dozens of emails a day and I'm not going to remember exactly which one this one was referring to. So this takes me back to my Outlook. One thing that's really important to note is that we never actually store any of the emails or the documents themselves. So that's why we provide this link. It goes back to your, 365 Outlook account, and that's where it remains. We're just basically providing some of the metadata and glimpse into it so that you can quickly look at a time entry like this and remember the context behind it. But what we've done here is we have obviously captured the amount of time that you spent drafting and kind of responding to these emails. In this case, there were a few. And so it came out to, a bit of time spent. We then automatically match it to a client and matter. And then we generate this narrative description. So all of this is already presented to you as a first draft, which you can then approve with one click. Or if you wanted to make any changes, you can always modify any of these fields. So it's all within your control. You can reassign the client and matter. You can change the duration if you needed to. You can change the narrative. Let's say you want it to be present tense instead of past tense. You can update that. And the great thing about AI, which anyone who's used ChatGPT or Claude probably recognizes, the more that you use it, the better it gets. It really gets to know you and kind of understand your billing preferences and styles. So as I make changes to, the grammatical preferences and present tense versus past tense or even naming convention, in the future, it'll start to generate time entries that align with the ones that I've approved. So it takes your approval as like a key signal of this is what good looks like, this is what accurate is, and it gets better as you use it. And so what I'm showing you here are just a couple examples of the sources that we're pulling in from. You can see here that we have email, we have browser. So this is capturing any research that you're doing. It'll show you your time spent on different sites. And we kind of can detect, the topic of what you're researching and tie that back to a client and matter as well. We have calendar integrations as well as video call and VoIP integrations that capture a lot of the meeting activity. And so,
And you're getting a few questions if it's a good time to address those as you're going through.
yeah,
How does it know if you have meetings that aren't on your calendar?
yeah. So if you have a meeting that has kind of a digital footprint, let's call it, like a Teams call or a Zoom call, with those integrations, it'll capture anything that is happening in those forums. If it's a true offline, like hallway, encounter meeting and there's no digital record of it, yes, that is true that we would not be able to capture that. I want to be
That's
very
on the roadmap,
transparent.
right? The Billables robot
Yeah, the
that you
brain
put in
chip
office.
that goes into everyone's,
Yeah,
yeah, that's next,
yeah,
but
yeah.
today, no. So yeah, we do rely on there being some sort of digital artifact, which these days is what we've heard, like 95% of your work has some sort of digital artifact. Oftentimes there will be like a calendar hold, even if it is for an in-person meeting, or, maybe there's a follow-up email or something sent that could maybe be a trigger, and we would definitely capture all of that. So what we've heard is that by and large, we're capturing the vast majority of the work, or at least enough that people can also make some quick edits to really round out everything else that may not be showing up directly.
You have about five more questions here. How
Amazing.
does how does this handle tasks that are conducted on your cell phone?
Yeah, so we have our integrations enabled directly with Microsoft. For example, we have an Outlook integration that allows us to capture any email activity across devices. So once you enable that integration, which is a one-time setup thing, it's basically like an auth in. You don't have to set up a app on your phone or your tablet, but you can send emails from any device. We're capturing that. If you join a Teams call from your iPad or you take a Zoom call from your phone, we're able to capture all of that. So a lot of our integrations are cross-device. There are some limitations for some like desktop only tracking, but a lot of the core things that people tend to do kind of across device like email and video calls, we're able to capture.
How does it automap to client.matter?
Yeah, this is a great question because I think this is a little bit of the magic, right? And where we see AI really excelling. So we will look at a number of different signals, and a lot of this comes from our integrations and kind of the metadata that we're getting when we partner with Microsoft, when we're working with Zoom, for example, to basically infer what you're working on. And that's really where the AI models come into play. So just as an example, in this time entry, you can see that through our browser integration, there were some sites that were visited that all had to do with kind of prescription drug advertising. So we kind of inferred that it had to do with this client and this particular matter that's related to that topic. Another example that comes up is documents. So, for this particular document, it's actually a template that was being used and was saved in a SharePoint folder that was housed under this particular client. So we're taking some of that metadata, and there's not one exact way that we use to match the client and matter, but it could be a combination of those things I described, or maybe you're emailing with someone, Susan at companyx.com. We can infer that the domain is related to that company or that client or matter. So
Nancy,
there's a
we're getting
bunch of different
questions in
signals.
faster than we
Yeah.
can get them answered. So I'll answer one real quick. Steve asked about pricing. So billables is 129 per user each month. Steve, as far as the licensing counts, we're happy to work with you offline to figure that out and what makes the most sense. The next question for you, Nancy, are the narrative preferences customized to an individual user or set to be a firm standard?
Yeah, the answer is yes, and so we have a number of different settings that you can apply to set up your billing guidelines or narrative preferences. So for each individual, they can put in their billing guidelines, things like use the phrase review and analyze instead of research. Do you want to include periods at the end of each description? That can also be set at the org level. So you can apply billing guidelines for everyone in the firm. You can upload guidelines, so you can take a PDF of, any existing policies and apply that to everyone in the firm. And you can also set it up at the client level. So let's say this particular client has certain rules around block billing or, narrative preferences. You can also set that here, and that would apply to anyone that's billing to that client. So most firms that we work with use a combination of all three, right? There's a lot of things that might be required, obviously from the client. There's some firm-wide preferences that the, managing partners just want to enforce, and then each individual just may have their own quirks. So a lot of times they're using a combination.
Okay, two, four, six, eight, nine questions to go.
All right.
What are the protections for the individual user from his firm's access to the info? Stated with
Really
privacy before.
Yeah, really great question. So we want to make sure this tool is helpful to all users and to firm administrators and honoring kind of the privacy balance that comes with that. So a couple things I'll say on that note. One, there is a lot of control over what is captured versus not. So Rob mentioned this earlier, but our integration-led approach means that you can make sure you're just connecting your work email or even your work profile that you use in your browser. And it's not just capturing everything that might happen on your computer, including some of your personal stuff. So you really can opt in to what it's capturing and be really selective to make that focused on the work activity. But in terms of the privacy and visibility of the time entries and all of the data that we're capturing, it is only the approved and released time that ever gets seen by anyone other than yourself. So as an individual user, I might be like a paralegal, an attorney at the firm. I would have visibility into this full dashboard, which includes all these draft entries, but only when I approve it and release the time, which would be this button. It would look like this, release to Centerbase. Only those entries kind of get seen. Everything else is left behind. No one sees it. And so it's really just within your control.
Nancy, why don't we keep going through the demo, hit the questions at the end, or we're gonna spend 30 minutes answering questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the questions have been great because it actually touched upon some things I wanted to mention. So I'm really glad that it was like prompted and in a natural conversation. But just to kind of show you, the full landscape of the product, obviously we have a lot of information that we're capturing. We're also using AI to try to filter out some of the noise. So we understand that we can capture a lot of information, but we have this kind of spam folder view that uses AI to kind of filter out things like a dentist appointment on your calendar, right? Things that we capture through our integrations that you may not want to bill for. So there's a lot of kind of nuance in which how we're applying the machine learning to really make sure that your dashboard is as accurate, as high quality as possible. So you kind of got a sense for, how the platform works. You can see here that we've really prided ourselves on building an interface that's super intuitive and easy to use. Oftentimes folks can get onboarded with minimal training, just kind of figuring out like ways to approve their time entries, and making this kind of almost a consumer grade product in terms of its ease of use. But I wanted to go back a little bit and kind of revisit some of the key points just so they don't get lost because I know there's a lot of questions around the functionality and can it do this and can it do that. And I think at the end of the day, what we're really excited about is that for the first time ever, I would say this capability just didn't exist, a few years ago. We have this solution that can really automate that end-to-end timekeeping process. So it's assigning the client's matters and codes. It's identifying the relevant work streams, what's actually billable, what you actually want to track and measure, calculating those precise durations, generating those detailed compliant narratives. And I think that's one thing that is a misconception. A lot of times people think about timekeeping and they think of just the timekeeping part of it, but there's so much art and science kind of imbued in billing and into your time entries. And we're really using AI to its fullest capability to kind of tackle all bits of that process. And, we touched upon this already, but I think it's worth overemphasizing in terms of like our methodology and why we're the leaders in the space and really the only ones that are using this type of approach for timekeeping, which is this integration-led approach. So what this means is, and Rob kind of touched upon this early on, a lot of times when you think about passive time tracking, there's a lot of kind of blanket screen monitoring that happens. There's tools that take screenshots of your entire screen, everything that's happening on it, and then it's kind of using AI to extract, which programs those are mapped to and kind of break it up into billable activity, but starting from like a catch-all approach. And what we've done instead is we have built in with an integration-led approach where we're integrating with your email providers, with Microsoft, with Google. We're integrating with your browser, with your voice over IP systems, with all of these different work software that you're using day to day. And we're getting the metadata there and only what's needed to generate the time entry. So in many cases, we're never taking screenshots at all. We're just getting kind of timestamps and metadata, and that allows us to get that information really securely and privately. We do have an optional kind of app monitoring, but again, even that is never blanket screen monitoring. It is really opt-in. And so that's like a key thing that we've heard a lot from partners and firms that we worked with is like this desire to avoid blanket screen monitoring and really being able to kind of opt into what you want tracked. Those deep integrations are a huge part of our value prop and differentiator. We built each of these integrations painstakingly with each of these providers and kind of adhere to their security provisions as well. And that allows for that accuracy. And then that device fluidity. So, once you connect your Outlook account, for example, that's working across every device that you're using, no matter if you're sending an email from your phone or tablet. And so I think those elements really have made for a very differentiated offering and better quality product in terms of those time entries that we generate. Let me pause there because I know we have other
You want to get
questions.
into some of the questions?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Um, will the current Centerbase time tracking functionality remain if users don't add billables? Yes. Nothing changes in Centerbase. Can you give it some settings up front about preferences for narratives like present tense, general phrasing, etc.?
Yes, you can
Yes.
give preferences, yeah, through the billing guidelines, or you can also just guide it by approving, editing and approving your time entry. So it's taking both implicit signals, which is your edits and what you're saying is like right and accurate just by approving your time, and explicit signals, which is uploading your billing guidelines, saying I want periods at the end of every description, things like that.
Ed, can you drop the survey link in again, just because it's getting so buried? If people want demos, we'll just put it at the bottom. So next question, Nancy. So text and phone calls not through Teams are captured? Question mark.
So phone calls through Teams are captured. We are building out the ability to capture texts and messages as well. So that is coming soon, not supported today. Um,
How does the auto time capture handle an attorney that has a couple of primary clients with multiple matters for them?
Yep, so it will automatically assign both client and matter. And so there's a couple ways. So it'll assign it automatically at the matter level, and um, we'll learn to kind of distinguish between different types of matters as well within just by you editing and approving.
Somebody asked about text, which we've already addressed. I see a potential risk in this, in that I often have time blocked on my calendar to get work done on matters, but then end up getting a call on another matter during that time. It sounds like the AI would assume the activity on the calendar happened as scheduled, so this would require careful review editing, as all billing does, but I worry about time getting overlooked and accidentally billed when it shouldn't have.
Yeah, this is actually really common. We see this a lot. I do this a lot in my own calendar and workflow where I'll put in like focus blocks or, work time sessions in my calendar. And so we would basically capture that activity um, through our integration, but those types of calendar entries tend to then fall into this like spam folder view. So oftentimes if you have a calendar hold for like focus or lunch or anything like that, it'll kind of get filtered out automatically. So it won't show up in your primary dashboard. And again, only what you approve actually gets billed or released. So you always have final say, but we try to make it as easy as possible for you to have a clean dashboard to review. You're not spending your time sorting through a lot of that noise, and you can kind of get to that final output.
Does a firm have to have NetDocs Centerbase integration in order for this to work? If our files are in SharePoint but not integrated to Centerbase, how will the AI know how to connect work in SharePoint to the correct matter?
Yeah, we have a SharePoint integration, so it works really
Easy.
well with that. Yeah.
Do you have to purchase for all users, or can you just purchase for the attorneys only? Laura, happy to talk to you about user counts there. You do not have to purchase it for every user in the firm, but we can obviously talk through it with you to see what makes the most sense. Do the entries go into Centerbase as billable events or billing entries? Haley, when you release them, from billables, they go in as billing entries, not billable events, because the assumption is you've already done the vetting here. It's obviously fantastic. I would have to agree, Steve. What does the integration look like with office calls? We use Fluent Phone and Snap Mobile.
Good question. So we do have a long list and a growing list of voice over IP providers that we integrate with. Unfortunately, not Fluent Phone or Snap Mobile today, but we will add that. We're releasing them on a continual basis. What we support today in terms of voice over IP systems, Teams Phone, Zoom Phone, Ring Central, Dialpad, 8x8. There's more coming. Um, we're building on a continual basis. So, you know, let us know. We take that input, and it's definitely possible that that would be ready, in the near future.
All right. Does this integration work with net documents? In other words, can it measure how long you work on an agreement and include it in your summary?
Yes, it works with really any kind of document management. So most of our customers are on Net Documents. We also have firms that are on iManage, and we actually don't rely on a direct integration with either of those. We're just capturing that activity directly through our integration with Word and the actual word processing.
With this new technology, there will be some skepticism from our attorneys. So Centerbase offering a trial period for 30 to 60, 90 days, see if the technology will work. We're not offering a trial period. However, we're happy to do multiple demos for your team, record videos, do what we need to do in order to get some confidence within your team. I can tell you I've been at all the major trade shows with the Billables team this year, and they're definitely the sweetheart of these trade shows. Their booths are, always they have a ton of people coming to the booths, and they're definitely one of the most popular on the floor. So we're really excited about that. Can you give real-time look into how it works? Okay, survey link. Can you apply preferences, requirements by client, i.e. leads, and or by practice area?
Yes, the answer is yes, you can apply preferences by client. We don't have practice area, like, team level guidelines, but it is something we've talked about building out. But what we do offer today is on an individual level, firm level, or client level. And the client preferences apply to anyone on the team that touches that client. So a lot of times that kind of solves a lot of those core needs.
Does this integrate with Box? I think it's the same answer as Net Documents, not directly, but through the tools they use. What is the commitment time? 1 year. We append this onto your Centerbase contract for that one. And that's it. Those are all the questions we had. Anything else, Nancy?
Awesome. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of wrap up with just a few parting thoughts around the results that we've seen and what we've heard from customers. So, across the board, I think one of the key reasons why people seek us out in the first place is to capture more billable time. It's what we were talking about earlier, time leakage. It's a real problem. It really impacts revenue. And what we've seen is that people are able to recover 10 to 30% more billable time, which then really helps the product pay for itself, and usually that happens within the first week. You only have to capture a fraction of an hour to kind of offset the cost, and that's been the consistent feedback that we've heard. And I think a lot of what we're able to capture gives you like a really full and complete picture of how your time is truly spent. I think this is like a huge horizon for us that's still relatively untapped. Rob mentioned it earlier. We think this is a big opportunity for Billables and Centerbase customers to just get a better understanding of how time is spent across the firm, and help with a lot of different, workflow and client conversations. And we're happy to send, some of our happy customer testimonials, but wanted to highlight one firm that we've worked with, Tico Zavary, who are Centerbase and Billables customers that have been using our platforms together for a while now and are seeing the hours of tasks that really wouldn't have been captured without billables. And for them, it's already added up to thousands of dollars in revenue. And so we see this story time and time again from other firms who've, captured 30% more billable time, who had all of these, process issues in the past, who've reduced the amount of time spent on billing. This one, I love this quote because this was like an actual text I got from a customer who like literally set a timer for how long it took him to do his time entry review. And this is someone who used to spend hours on it, right? So he literally timed himself, took 3 minutes, and he was ecstatic about it. People responding well to our integration-led approach and the differentiator between like that kind of screen monitoring approach. and really just this being a tool for that's critical for anyone who bills by the hour and making sure every hour counts. So those are some of the, feedback that we've gotten from actual customers. And then just as a last kind of forward-looking thought, I wanted to share our philosophy on why modern timekeeping is really about more than just time. And I think this is something that's coming up more and more. Rob mentioned, we go to a lot of trade shows. We're talking to a lot of folks that are really on the cusp of what's happening in the future with law firms, how AI is modernizing things. And what we see here is there's a few trends that, really emphasize more so than ever the importance of using a tool like this. One is that, we see this evolution potentially in billing models. Now, I don't think the billable hour is going away tomorrow. I think anyone who claims that is probably overstating it. But there certainly are more conversations recently around, are there AFAs that we should be exploring? Should we consider breaking off some of our work into a flat fee model? And I think one thing that's really important to note is like none of those things can really be possible or done in a responsible way without the right data inputs. So being able to set a flat fee, but also know how much time is actually spent on that work ensures that you're not pricing yourselves in a way that puts you in the red. We also want to help firms understand productivity, not just time. So, helping people gain visibility into where hours are spent, identifying efficiency gaps. We want to help firms align with increasing client expectations. The demands have been greater in terms of transparency and predictable pricing, and these insights can really help you with that. We want to help firms make informed staffing decisions and resourcing decisions, analyzing patterns across cases and teams and types of work and enhancing lawyer well-being. So, we've heard from not just my co-founder's wife, but from many people that timekeeping is the bane of their existence. People leave private practice, right, to go in-house to avoid timesheets. Like it is a problem in terms of, health and happiness. And so we see this as a critical way to really alleviate that burden. And then lastly, it really helps you future-proof the practice. So all the things that I mentioned really will help, firms be set up for success in the future. And this is a quote that I say a lot around AI and the role that it plays within the legal industry. I don't believe that AI will replace lawyers, but I think a lot of people subscribe to the school of thought that lawyers who use AI will probably replace lawyers who don't. And I think we see that just in the efficiencies that we've kind of unlocked for the firms we work with. I think a lot of them can't imagine going back. They're able to do so much more with the tools that we enable. And so we're really excited for this just to be the beginning of that future.
Nancy, thank you so much for putting this presentation together. I know somebody just asked, where's that survey link again? I guess you got somebody at the last second. They were really interested in something you said. So it's in the chat. If you want to set up a demo, please fill that out and we will follow up with you. Other than that, we really appreciate your time today. Thanks for being Centerbase customers and thank you for your interest in this new integration. A lot of exciting things coming with it, and we look forward to chatting with you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you tuning in. We're excited to work together.